welcome to the agenda with me, Lasha Kingsley in Douala, Cameroon. As the Anglophone crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon deteriorates, many stakeholders in the crisis, including some former separatists, have been proposing ways to get Cameroon out of the current socio-political upheaval in the two English-speaking regions of the country. Chairman of New Africa Coalition Front, former separatist leader says a Cameroon national referendum for a 10-state cultural federation is the most viable and peaceful solution to the nation's political, economic, social, and cultural crisis. Nso Foncha talks to the agenda. Nso Foncha in Washington, D.C., welcome to the agenda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lassa, for inviting me to your media platform, and I'm very honored to be here with you and the rest of our compatriots in all the 10 regions of our country. It's my pleasure to be here, and I think seeking alternative peaceful pathways and solutions to the current socioeconomic, cultural, and political crisis that our country has been experiencing for over 50 years. And this same crisis has led to an armed insurrection within the last 4 years in the northwest and southwest region of our country. So we are here now to seek solutions to this crisis, in as much as we look back retrospectively to talk about the cause, the effects, the suffering of our people. So I think we should focus more on solution on how to bring our nation back together.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is equally shared. The pleasure is equally shared. I am mindful you have once been one of those who advocated for the total restoration of the statehood of former British Southern Cameroons, today known as the northwest and southwest regions of the country. And sir, I am interested in knowing who Nso Foncha is. Can you briefly tell us about yourself, your family, educational, and professional backgrounds?
Well, not to hold everybody up before the interview starts, I will make a very brief summary of myself. I have a technical education, a technical background. And I left Cameroon when I was still a young teenager, and I've been residing overseas in Europe and the United States for most of my adult life. And I am a businessman in the United States. I've owned and operated restaurants. I've owned and operated tractor trailing companies, like you call it in Cameroon, camion avancés. And, you know, I've done international business, and I was also the chief broker for UKO Coffee Cooperative in Bafoussam. I was their North American salesperson, and I've done quite well for myself as a businessman, and I'm looking into other ventures now. But my family background, my father, late Pastor Samuel Nso, was a chief confidant of His Excellency Nso Foncha, and my father was the main financier of the KNDP party that actually fought for the one Cameroon of Nso Foncha, Ntumazang, and the rest, Felix Momi. And now, as to move forward with this, currently, you know, I am the chairman of the New Africa Coalition Front. This New Africa Coalition Front has been in existence for the past 2 years, after I decided to pull away from the secessionist movement because of good counsel, and also being an American citizen, I have to adhere to the American foreign policy objectives for Africa and Cameroon in particular. I've gotten counsel, and I've looked at all the different angles in which we were going as people from the Northwest and Southwest in the secessionist movement, and I knew that this is not going to prevail.
Yeah, we shall be coming back. We shall be coming back to that. For us to proceed with the interview, we'd like to look at some of the areas that you have involved yourself in. Some people say you worked as a soldier in the American Army, and other people say you just a mere security guard in the United States of America. Whose truth is true?
Well, well, then again, social media has a lot of information in it, but if you want to follow information that's on social media, you're going to be getting very terrible information. First of all, I've never been a security guard, but in terms of with the American military, I have been a military contractor. At the Quantico Marine Base, I was a military contractor when I had Diversity Continental Van Lines. That was my trucking company, and I contracted with a company called New England. And this company, my company was building homes for United States Marine Corps officers at Quantico during the Operation Desert Storm.
Yeah.
And during Operation Enduring Freedom, my company, Diversity Continental Van Lines, I was responsible in constructing homes for the returning soldiers from Enduring Freedom. So that is the connection that I have with the military. I still have all my clearances that I went into the base and did my work. So I operated this company, and I had over 50 workers working for me. So up to date, with my companies in America, I've employed over 200 American citizens have worked under me. So that's just some of my portfolio. But currently, I am in the financial markets.
Sir, the group that you led before resigning in the struggle, how many soldiers have your group, the group that you were the spokesperson for, killed? And how many soldiers under the group that you control fell under the Cameroonian army when you were spokesperson for that armed group fighting for the restoration of former British Southern Cameroons?
Well, I don't think I want to dwell into how many soldiers met their death.
But it's very important for us to proceed with this interview. You must admit with me that is very important.
No.
To get those details.
Again, you have to understand that when you have a situation, let me just give you a little nomenclature of what I controlled and what I was in.
Yes.
In the beginning of this crisis, before any of the other armed factions were created, ADF, SOCADEF, the ROFs, name it, Tigers, I was the one who actually launched the first arms group on the ground. That was called Southern Cameroon Defense Forces, SCDF. It was launched in Washington, D.C. as a self-defense mechanism against what the heavy-handedness of the security operatives, based on the images we were getting from the lawyers and the teachers and also the students of the Boya University. That was the reason why that self-defense group was created.
Did you have soldiers on the ground at that time? Were there soldiers on the ground?
No, we were mobilizing our young men and women to defend our communities and our people based on the images that we were getting from the ground in Boya and different parts of the Southwest Province and Northwest Province. We're talking about the heavy-handedness of the security guards. Now, I want to make something very clear here, so people should not misconstrue my statement.
Yes.
Even in this United States, like what we see, people riot, and sometimes the security officers are heavy-handed towards the protesters. So this is not something new to Cameroon. And when that happened, the citizens of the various cities in America, like what we saw in Minneapolis, they rise up and they create this self-defense mechanism. It was within that context that the SCDF was launched. It was not launched initially that we were going to fight the Cameroon military to topple the government in Yaoundé and create another African microstate. That was not. So I just want to make these things very clear.
But you have videos and images of yourself circulating on the social media, showing your military might as far back as 2017 and 2018. If you love, we'll play some of those videos for you to see for yourself.
Yes, I did. And I did that. That is strategic pastoring. If I don't know if you understand what I'm saying here. When you are trying to mobilize people 13,000 kilometers away from where you are, and the only means you have is the media, you have to be a catalyst to strategic pastoring. And that strategic pastoring, the way you are talking to them, the images that they are seeing, and what you are telling them, it's what actually can make them to be bold enough to say, okay, I think I can defend myself. This was not about to go against a Republican military of a nation which has the firepower that we as Cameroonians, no matter what we do, no matter how much money we raise in the diaspora, there is absolutely no way we can actually defeat the military of a sovereign state. So these images that you were seeing, or most Cameroonians have seen, these were strategic pastoring to give our young men and women then the willpower, the indomitable willpower to believe in themselves that they can be able to defend themselves against heavy-handedness from the rogue military officers and heavy-handedness from the security agencies as well. Okay,
sir. Between 2017 and the time you resigned, what has changed?
Well, as I said during my beginning statement, my opening statement, in every crisis or every war or conflict, whatever you call it, when you enter into a conflict and you have a position in the beginning, that position cannot be a position that is not flexible, looking at the events internationally, within the country, the consensus of the people, because remember, we cannot just say we are fighting until the last man standing without hearing from our people on the ground, our various constituencies. So as a leader, I make my decisions based on the information I'm getting from the ground, from the various constituencies, and also from counsel, from diplomats, international diplomats. I've held several meetings with consummated American diplomats, and I am an American citizen. I have to work within the United States of America foreign policy objectives. And those foreign policy objectives are very clear, as the Undersecretary for African Affairs, Mr. Thibault Nagy, outlined it. It's an official U.S. foreign policy objective for Africa and Cameroon in particular. I'm also taking cue from the African Union, all the 54 countries within the African Union. I'm basing my policy shift based on this information from the ground and the international community. And it's quite certain that a good leader will not allow those who are fighting for an objective to become kamikazes. Because a kamikaze fight or war, a kamikaze war, can never achieve its objectives, but rather the kamikaze soldiers will meet a certain death, just like the Japanese did in Pearl Harbor in the Second World War.
Okay, so sir.
You have to understand.
People are saying that you have been bought over by the government of Cameroon, and what have you to say to your doubters, those who doubt you? They say you've been bought by the government of Cameroon, and if not, are you ready to meet with the Yaoundé regime to talk peace?
Listen, my brother, and I want to make this categorically clear to everyone who is watching us today and who is going to watch this interview in the days ahead. I have not been bought over by the regime in Yaoundé. I have not been given any monies by the regime in Yaoundé. I am a businessman. I got into this crisis and I have rather lost income in my business by putting so much money helping people all across the world because of this crisis. Yaoundé doesn't have the money to give me.
So why the sudden U-turn? Why the sudden U-turn? Why the sudden U-turn?
I've just explained to you, based on the information I'm getting from the constituencies on the ground, and also the counsel from consummated international diplomats and the U.S. foreign policy objectives for Cameroon as well. And just the second part of your question, if you go back and for the past few months, I've been telling you that my policy shift is based on good counsel, and because of that, the alternative peaceful pathway is for us to resolve this crisis as Cameroonians, not as Anglophones or Francophones, as I mentioned during my opening statement. This conflict or this crisis, Cameroon has been experiencing it ever since the French and the British colonized us. So these problems started with the French and the British and the English who colonized us. We have a deep identity crisis called Francophone and Anglophone. We have forgotten that we are all Africans in the first place, and now we are fighting to maintain neo-colonial form of state and governance in Cameroon that is perpetuating this identity crisis. And some of us from the southwest and the northwest region, we are also trying to revert back to a neo-colonial British form of state. This is where I differ as a Pan-Africanist.
Yes.
And that is why I have decided, I've told all my followers and the people of Cameroon that we have to work and seek a new alternative pathway. And I've already given a middle ground to the Cameroonian people, a middle ground of a 10-state cultural federation like what we have in Switzerland, like what we have in Germany, like what we have in many successful countries, even the United Kingdom. So this is the middle ground that I'm offering, and we have started seeing movements of people like Tabe Julius of the IG and many others who have started following this pathway. And the other 10 regions of the country, like the Ekang Federation, the Sawa Federation, Mouvement de 10 Millions Nordistes. So we are seeing a movement, and now it's a grassroots movement to call for our government for a national conference, constituency representatives, to be able to meet.
One would have expected to see you at the major national dialogue, which was held in Yaoundé from September 30th, 2019 to October. But unfortunately, you were not part of the major national dialogue. And sir, before we proceed, this question for you once again, what do you think about a possible indictment at the International Criminal Court? Because you were the spokesman for an armed group that might have committed such international crimes and crimes against humanity. Your sudden U-turn, many people see it as seeking for refuge because of the war crime and crime against humanity you have committed in the northwest and southwest region of the country.
I can answer that question very briefly. Very briefly, in the sense that Southern Cameroon Defense Forces, SCDF, did not commit any crimes against humanity, did not go against the Geneva Conventions, and the fighters that were recruited during that period, these fighters have been disbanded because they have joined other groups. So if we want to go chronologically to follow when these crimes against humanity started happening, it started happening when Lucas Ayaba created the ADF, Akwanga created Soccer Def, and Samuel Sako Ikome, they created the ROF. And during that period, the SCDF was transforming itself, because I came with something called the ASC, which is a self-defense organ.
Yes, sir, let me interrupt you.
It's very important.
Let me interrupt you here. Let me interrupt you, sir. The famous announcement of late Ekema Patrick that had been kidnapped. You made the announcement, and that time you were working for ADF and other armed groups. You said he was taken away, and the information turned out to be fake.
You got it wrong. You got it wrong. I never worked for ADF. I've never been part of ADF. You got it all wrong. And it was not a kidnap of a Kema. The share ability sometimes for us Africans to display full frontal stupidity in certain discourse is quite evident in this crisis. Now, when the Americans were fighting in Afghanistan, fighting Mullah Omar and Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan, several times the American military spokesman came and said Osama bin Laden has been caught in Tora Bora, the mountains of Tora Bora. But later came back and said no, it was a faulty intelligence.
So it means you never had the intelligence, the people with whom you were working on the ground.
I just want to show how the level of stupidity and misrepresentation is within our African community in certain issues. Even in Iraq, during Operation Enduring Freedom, how many times did the U.S. military spokesman come and said Saddam Hussein has been caught, and later came back and recanted that it was false intelligence? This was a faulty intelligence that came to me when I was actually on air chastising Lucas Ayaba for bringing armed groups into Teke in Meme without informing us, because I was chastising Lucas Ayaba that night to the point where all the followers of Lucas Ayaba were insulting me, calling me all type of names. And after I finished that broadcast, chastising him about bringing Mba Aibo into Teke, that is when I got information that late Mayor Ekema Patrick has been arrested by the Ambazonan Restoration Forces.
So what is your relationship with Ayabacho Lucas? What is your relationship with Ayabacho Lucas?
Let me finish. This is important for me to finish, because the stupidity around this topic is deafening.
Yes.
Okay. This is what happened. When I finished chastising Ayaba Lucas for bringing Mba Aibo into Teke that night, then all of a sudden, I got a call from my deputy that Chris Anu was announcing that Ekema Patrick has been arrested by the secessionist forces. And they want me to go back on air and announce that Ekema has been. So I called back. I said, is this true? They said, yes. So I went on air. I said, I said it that Ekema.
You ruled we got him. You ruled we got him.
Important.
The message is still there. I have your Facebook message.
It's important. You ask the question and let me answer. This is very important, because the sheer level of stupidity around this is intolerable.
Okay.
The foolishness.
Clear the air.
When I listen, you can go back and watch it. When I went on air and I announced this information that got to me, less than 2 hours, I called some of the fighters on the ground, and they debunked the story that it was a setup by either Chris Anu or the Ayabakam to try to destroy my integrity. I went back on air less than 1 hour, and I announced that the information that I just put out, I have the videos if you want, I'll send it to you. The information that I just put out that Ekema Patrick has been arrested, that was a faulty intelligence, and I have withdrawn that statement.
Okay, let's go over that. The question, I come back to my question. You are denying that you never had anything to do with Ayabacho. You have never worked for Ayabacho. So What is your relationship with Ayabacho, Lucas?
Well, first of all, let me explain something. I will never work for Ayabacho. I am the catalyst of the arms revolution. Ayabacho should work for me. Now, we have created an avenue with the New Africa Coalition Front that we are engaging the government of Cameroon and international partners to seek for a middle ground to end this crisis, end the suffering of our people. But Ayabacho is still there talking about war councils and warmongering while our people are dying. In the eyes of the international community, I am the leader of the alternative peaceful pathway to resolve this crisis. And that is why I am talking to our adversaries around the world, and also I'm engaging the government of Cameroon to systematically demilitarize the Southwest and the Northwest, end this crisis, and create consensus across the country, in all the 10 regions of the country, and move towards the agenda of a 10-state cultural federation that the New Africa Coalition Front stands on.
Cameroon
knows my position on this.
How do you do this with arms in the hands of wrong persons? How do you do this? Some of your boys still have arms on the ground.
I don't think you listened what I was saying here. I am the New Africa Coalition Front, which I happen to be the chairman.
Yes.
We were part of this misguided information to pick arms after the heavy-handedness of the lawyers and the teachers in Boya. But remember, there is something there that we must all agree. In as much as this decision was misguided,
yes,
today, even our government organizing the Grand National Dialogue is an acceptance to the international community that, yes, indeed, our country is experiencing a socio-economic, cultural, and political crisis. Now, the first dialogue failed for obvious reasons. We'll get back to that because of the protocol that was handled. I am pushing for a national conference that might lead to a national referendum, a Cameroon national referendum. And when I'm talking about a 10-state federation, I don't want to go back to a 2-state federation either, because that would be a colonial construct. I am talking about constructive regionalism, that each province in that country today, along our cultural boundary, will become a state, and we will have a one and indivisible federal Cameroon, just like Switzerland, just like Germany, just like Nigeria, just like most successful countries around the world, like Canada as well. So that is the policy that the New Africa Coalition Front stands on, and the Cameroon government knows my position, and I am willing to work with the government of Cameroon and the people of Cameroon to end this arms insurrection, for us to build constituencies across our country in order for us to trade ideas instead of bullets, in order to build a new country, a new society, and a new social order.
So if the government of Cameroon calls for you now, what will you be proposing to the government?
Well, Mr. Lassa, I've already told you what I'm going to propose to the government. I am the chairman of the New Africa Coalition Front. I am working with international partners, and for us to understand one thing, these international partners will not be the one to solve Cameroonian problem. Cameroon problem is a Cameroonian problem and an African problem. I am a Pan-Africanist. I don't believe importation of solutions to Africans. So that is why I told you earlier that I am willing to go to the extreme end to work with the government of Cameroon. And when I say the government of Cameroon, I'm talking about all peoples of Cameroon in all the 10 regions of Cameroon.
What about those holding the guns?
That is exactly my point. We are engaged in trying to find a way to demilitarize the crisis and move towards trading of ideas, building of consensus, constituency representation, and we can go into a grand national conference like what they call Lawyer Jogger in Afghanistan. Then we can now move towards asking our government for a national referendum, so each region in that country will have a say-so for the future of the country. And I want to make one thing here very clear. I don't support the idea of the Cameroonian government negotiating the future of the entire country with a person, an individual, or a group of secessionist movement leaders in the diaspora without the consent of all the 10 regions of the country. That is why I am building a grassroots movement across the country with the people of the East, the South, the Center, Littoral, Adamawa, Far North, so we can seek to build consensus among ourselves in our various constituencies. And remember, if 80% of the population of Cameroon, the people, they want the government or their government to organize a national Cameroon referendum for a 10-state cultural federation, the government will have to do that because the government is the people. The people sitting there as our leaders now, they are representing 26 million Cameroonians and 10 regions. So in order for change to come to Cameroon, we cannot go to the few people sitting at the top in the government in Yaoundé, but we have to speaking to our brothers and sisters from across that country to build a grassroots consensus to demand change in our country. And I think that change can come not by guns anymore, because we are moving towards a situation where 1.34 billion Africans are moving towards regional and continental integration.
Nso Foncha,
and as a Pan-Africanist, I don't support the idea of a micro-state.
I'm sorry, we have to end it here, sir. Thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule in Washington, D.C. to talk to My Media Prime Television. We are grateful you honored our invitation.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and I will be at your. I will be anytime you want to call me for an interview, you are welcome to call me. In as much as I have a very busy schedule with the financial markets, and I will be willing to take more of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.